Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Progressive Overload Podcast. Have you ever thought about strengthening multiple areas of your life at the same time? Then you've come to the right place. Our goal is to help you identify ways that you might need a progressive overload to break through those plateaus and keep you growing. What's up, everybody? This is Joe Copeland, and welcome to the Progressive Overload Podcast. I am sitting by Dustin Moore and Adam Lazarine.
What's up?
The pollen count is up.
That's correct.
Oh, man.
My allergies have been killing me today. I woke up and just sneeze. What's okay?
What's his nickname?
Typhoid Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Tyson.
Yeah, thanks again for that.
So how you guys been doing?
Good. I'm thinking about taking up a new hobby.
Oh, yeah?
Hanging mirrors.
Hanging mirrors?
Yes.
Why?
Something I can really see myself doing.
Okay.
That's so specific.
Oh my goodness.
I love it.
I had to get it in there just because dad jokes are my world.
Dad jokes.
Yeah.
Dad joke Tuesday with
Dad joke
Adam.
Tuesday.
That's right. So
Oh my gosh.
it's going pretty well,
Yeah.
actually.
How about
Thank you for
Dustin?
asking.
How's
Sweet,
life?
sweet. Yeah, things are fantastic, man. The gym, the gains are going up.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Amount of weight
Let
that
us.
I've been lifting would skyrocketed be the right word, Joe? You've been seeing the numbers.
Yeah, so we're all doing pretty much the exact same program right now. We're going through a strength building program. Our sole purpose is to load up the bar, load up the dumbbells as high as possible. And I think we have all seen some strength gains, but
Yeah.
Dustin, his numbers are skyrocketing. Dude.
I love to see it, and I'm having so much fun seeing it happen.
And
it's been
fun
awesome.
watching you have fun, man.
Yeah, you're
great.
gonna get rid of that treadmill eventually. Just go to strength training.
No, I'll just figure out a way to lift the dumbbells on the treadmill.
That's dangerous.
That is very
just
dangerous.
for the people listening at home.
Life is dangerous.
1 star out of 10, do not recommend.
Right.
1 star out of 10, unless you're Dustin.
Oh,
So-
rapping.
Wow.
Yeah, no, things are great. We just got through Easter weekend,
Yep.
hung out with some family, and had some fun. They talked to them a little bit about the podcast. They've been listening, so
nice.
shout out to you guys. Thank you for the viewership.
Yeah.
Talked a little bit about kind of things that have been going on around here that have kept me extremely busy,
Mm-hmm.
and in a good way, in a way that I've enjoyed.
Well, that's good.
So-
But also, I also didn't get to tell you guys this, but I was officially referred to as a gym rat.
Oh, nice.
How about that?
That was
I dubbed
a term ascribed to me by somebody who said, "Did you work out 6 out of 7 days last week?" And I said, "So I might have,"
I might have.
and I did. And it was good, and I feel fantastic. Not
Yeah.
overworked or anything, but I'm kind of interested to see how today's topic kind of affects that.
Yeah, we'll go into that.
But yeah, and so they said, "Well, you're officially a gym rat," and I said, "Well,
How exciting for you, Dustin.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's what I've dreamed
So
about."
instead of
being
the
called.
treadmill, we'll get a rat on the wheel.
There we go.
Something
There we
like
go.
that.
So he'll
I'm
just-
making T-shirts if anybody wants them.
How?
Send me a message. Maybe I
Yeah.
can sign it for you.
Okay.
So with
Alright.
this heavy lifting that we're doing, one of the biggest things that I have seen is I am constantly hungry.
Dude, I'm starving right now. I'll be real. I haven't eaten yet today because I haven't had time.
Oh man,
And as soon as we're done here, we'll be finding something to
you're
chow.
gonna be rushing us to finish this recording so you can go eat. Huh?
No, it's
Have you
fine.
noticed that, Adam?
I have. I'm usually hungry,
Yeah.
all the time anyway. But I'm just a big guy anyway, and I like to eat. I like
Yeah.
food. But when we do lift heavy like this, it takes a toll on
Yeah.
the calorie deficit, and
Yeah.
because your body's putting out the work.
Does.
And,
It does.
so I'm looking forward to talking
Yeah.
about today, because one of the things that you do when you lift heavy, and I've noticed, is I tend to get pretty decent sleep,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
I don't know, I've just worked harder, and
Yeah.
even though
agree.
it's for a shorter period of time, sometimes in the gym, I feel like I'm putting in the work, and
Yeah.
then I see the benefit of the sleep. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Sweet.
Why don't you jump into that for us?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. I want to talk about the importance of sleep and why Sleep is a big rock. We talk about, we're going to use that metaphor for forever, as long as you're listening to this podcast, because the sleep that occurs is so important in recovering our body. And in terms of health and fitness, that's when our body recovers. That's when our body builds the muscle at night whenever we're sleeping. And so we think about somebody who's wanting to start becoming healthy, start lifting, start exercising. We put so much effort into, okay, what is the best way to work out? We put so much effort into what is the best way to eat? Am I going to meal prep? Am I going to follow this plan? We put all of this thought and research and effort into those aspects, but we ignore how can I maximize my sleep? And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today is some ways that we can just make some tweaks or some small changes in our schedule and some things that we can do to maximize sleep. That sound good to y'all?
That sounds
fantastic.
I'm sorry I went to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry I dozed off there.
Well, y'all need to follow some of these tips then.
Can you put a little more excitement in your voice so that I can stay awake?
Well, I didn't sleep very good last night, so I'm a little tired.
Okay.
Hey, as a pastor, I realize that people are engaged in my method of getting them to sleep, and so at least a couple of people every week.
Oh no,
so
I love it. Does that affect you whenever you see somebody nodding off?
Oh no, you get used to it.
Yeah.
It just comes with the territory.
It does.
No, this is something, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this subject outside of the podcast studio here, but this is a subject that I find for myself, especially right now, to be extremely relevant. I'm in a pretty similar boat to what Adam said of we're in the strength building phase, and I feel like I'm getting better sleep, and maybe that's kind of helped with everything else that I've seen, I guess, like productivity increase and everything, because I've been able to almost rest more completely, it feels
Absolutely,
like.
Yeah.
But I have not been one to ever hold a decent, I guess you could say, sleep habit. It's just I never have, and I know that there is value and importance to it, but there's some of the puzzle pieces I'm missing, and so I'm hoping that you'll be able to put those together.
That's a lot of pressure on me, man.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thrive under it.
Let's talk about first. We'll talk about a little bit of science and talk about the stages of sleep. We've discussed this very briefly, but I want to quickly go over the different stages of sleep and kind of what happens, the main kind of benefits among those stages. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's kind of two categories of sleep. There's REM, which is rapid eye movement, and then there's non-REM. So and then the we just call them non-REM stages. You start with stage 1. This is just the first 20 to 60 minutes of trying to fall asleep. So you're kind of in and out of consciousness. You're kind of laying there. You might toss and turn a little bit, but you might fall asleep for a little bit. But then you wake up again. And so it's just kind of this in and out stage.
That's the stage that I end up looking like a burrito in my blanket because I've tossed and turned so much that it's just like wrapped me up, right?
he really is hungry, isn't he?
I know. Now I am.
I'm a burrito.
I am the burrito.
This is usually what happens to me whenever the show ends.
Right.
I'm like, I'm awake now. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw something so funny on Facebook. It was like, I demand to know why the couch sleepiness never transfers to the bed sleepiness.
Dude, if I could solve that, my life would be in a much better spot, because I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've gone home and just decided to lay on the couch, right? And I get really tired.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, well, I just need to go ahead and go to bed. And I just get up, go lay in my bed, and look at the ceiling for the next 4 hours because I can't fall asleep.
Right.
It's crazy. After stage 1, we go into stage 2. This is kind of categorized as light sleep. And so this is when your body starts to decrease its temperature, lowering your heart rate, slowing down your brain waves. And by the way, pretty much all of these stages are related to the brain waves that are going on. Not going to go into that at all because it would kind of be over all of our heads. And doesn't really change the way we need to approach it. So if you're more interested in the science fact and the kinds of waves that are going around your brain, go to another podcast or Google. That's not us. But anyways, this is when your brain starts to filter and organize things that you learned throughout the day. So facts, situations that you went through, and it kind of puts together what was important, what it wants to store for that from that previous day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then it's going to transition to stage 3, which is deep sleep. This is where our muscle building, muscle repair, cellular repair happens. And so this is an important stage to get to. This is where a lot of the healing and recovery takes place. And then it's going to take all of the information that you filtered in stage 2, and it's going to consolidate that into long-term memory. And so whenever we can find ways to hack sleep and to make sure we get into the deep sleep and the light sleep rather than tossing and turning, that's when we can have stronger memory and feel more recovered and rested at the end of the day.
So I heard you throw some numbers out earlier. You said from like 20 to 60 minutes of us going to sleep. Mm-hmm. Now, within that 20 to 60 minutes, was that just stage 1 or is that non-REM?
That was just general? Stage 1.
So what is the time progression? Do you know? I guess should be the question.
Yeah.
What is the time progression if it's 20 to 60 minutes to hit stage 1? How long does it take to progress through these stages?
Yeah, so I don't know number-wise,
mm-hmm.
But typically, as far as the order that it goes, from what I read and what in my research was, you kind of start in that stage 1, you can progress to stage 2, and then you progress to stage 3, and then after stage 3, you tend to go out of the deep sleep into a light sleep, and then after that stage 2, and then after the stage 2, you go to the REM sleep.
So it's like 1, 2, 3, 2 REM.
Pretty much. And then it actually will repeat that cycle multiple times throughout the night. Mm-hmm. And this is if it's good uninterrupted sleep. So you might be at stage 3 about to go to REM, and then a dog barks outside and you're like, oh crap. Then you go back to stage 1, mm-hmm. and you basically have to start that process over. And
that sounds terrible.
I know.
So like overall it's almost like building blocks. Like you start with stage 1 and then you build on top of it with stage 2, and like progressively you're getting something done or accomplishing something, if you will.
It seems like that, yeah.
Through the night, if it's
mm-hmm.
uninterrupted.
Yeah.
Once you hit that stage 3, and for us and for what we're talking about, that physical repair, the memory consolidation, mm-hmm. whatever, that's a big thing for us. And so we want to be able to stack the blocks to where we get there and make sure mm-hmm. that we're hitting that. It's important for us to get to that point.
Yeah. And a lot of the hacks that we're going to talk about, or steps that you can take, are going to be ways to keep the night from being interrupted and losing the progress of those stages, if that makes sense. Real quick, the rapid eye movement is this is more physical and cellular repairs made. This is where you tend to have vivid dreams. Mm-hmm. And the coolest part that I read is this is if you ever felt that paralysis at night where you just like you're asleep, but you can feel that you're just almost paralyzed. You can't move. And actually, I read that the main reason that your body does that is so that you're not acting out your dreams. If you think about that, that's pretty
interesting.
Cool. I know.
So whenever I'm falling, in my dream, I'm not actually
flailing.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it looks terrible when I fall. I'm a tall guy.
Man, shout out to Tyson. Can you imagine if he was acting out his kickboxing dreams?
Oh my goodness.
Shout out to Tyson's wife, who would get punched in the face.
Yeah. Nah, she would take him down. Let's be real. Come on now.
Anyways, so that kind of those are the stages, just so you can kind of understand the importance of them and the different things that can happen, or the benefits of each stage.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, we're going to talk about some hacks, steps that we can take to make sure that we're getting the full effect of all of those different stages.
Okay, and so like as we approach these hacks, just to kind of put our minds in the right spot here, what we're saying when we're talking about these non-REM stages and the stage of REM itself, if we were to consolidate those things, we can really see that sleep is important.
Absolutely.
One, and that there are different points within our sleep where we have to be getting enough sleep for us to get the benefits of these things. And it seems to me, as we're looking through the definitions and kind of drawing these things out, our sleep can have a vast effect on our physical health or our bodies, our capabilities, with that, how our cells and our physical side is repaired. It can have effects on our mind.
Absolutely.
Even.
Yeah.
And even, and I think we kind of touched on this, but we didn't really touch on this, but getting enough sleep to the point of where we feel a more complete rest, in a sense. I see that as something that goes beyond the physical and mental. Like that can extend into the spiritual,
Sure.
in a sense.
Yeah, sure.
If you're thinking in context of your day-to-day life, there is a almost level of productivity that can be brought out of it because you feel rested enough to tackle the day.
Yeah.
And so there's all these different benefits that come from sleep and getting enough sleep. And so as we're approaching these hacks, we're trying to be able to almost set the stage for us to get that effective sleep before we get to the bed at night, right?
Yeah,
like
of
that's
course.
it's how we can set things up to most effectively hit what we need to hit.
Yeah,
Right.
and it can start as soon as you wake up. As soon as you wake up, you can start taking steps to prepare for a good night's sleep that night, if that makes
day.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Let me ask a couple questions before we
for
get
sure.
into the hacks. Okay. One, how accurate is your fitness tracker for keeping up with this? Because most of them do that.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
How accurate are those things?
accurate. They're not accurate,
Okay.
but what they are is they're a tool that you can use to compare night to night. So if I went and got a sleep study where they were actually reading my brain waves and they compared that to my Fitbit report, it would be probably way off. But what I can use it for is from Monday night to Tuesday night, I can see that there was a big difference in my deep sleep Tuesday night versus Monday night or something like that.
That's so interesting. Like I keep track of this. I see it on my phone through my own, fitness apps and whatnot. And it seems to suggest at least that on average, I spend about 7.5 hours a night asleep. And I've always found that interesting. And typically I can look at the time frames and kind of what it clocks, and it's consistent in regards to if I were to compare how much I actually slept or how much I was in bed versus that actual time of sleep, right? Like I see the correlation and I see the consistency, but I've always been like, I don't know that I really trust those. And so that's good to know.
If we look at the stages of sleep, they're mainly off of brain waves. And obviously, heart rate monitor on our wrist isn't going to be able to read that.
Because that's what it's tracking is your heart rate.
It's tracking our heart rate and our movement.
Which is interesting because my phone tracks my sleep, but I don't wear my watch when I'm asleep. And so it's just laying next to me like
Then
on
how is it
my
tracking
nightstand.
yours?
That's creepy.
I have no idea how it does it, but I've been curious.
The government. No.
Shout out to Apple tracking me 24/7.
All right. The other question I have is, what
Yes.
do we tell people and say to someone that has some condition like apnea or something like that would keep them from
Consult with the physician.
Okay, good. That's fine. That's
And great question. I have one of my clients. Shout out to Kelly. She has been training with me for 5 years this June. In 8 years of training clients, she's the longest one I've had at it. And she's missed a handful of sessions in 5 years, and it's crazy to me. But she struggles so badly with sleep. She's been on every medication, met with doctors, and I've told her time and time again, I would rather you not work out with me at all and get good sleep. If Jesus came to said, hey, I'll let you sleep good, but you can't go work out with Joe, I would tell her, take that deal.
Take that.
Let's make a deal, right? So these tips, like specifically talking to her, probably aren't going to help her very much because she struggles with medically, I don't even know the right word, but medically she struggles with sleep. So these hacks are meant for someone just looking for ways that they can improve sleep. Maybe they don't struggle with sleep. Maybe they fall asleep fine and they think they sleep good, but there are ways that we can make it better. So that's what these are for.
Essentially what you're saying is, for those of us who are not medically hindered in regards to sleep, these are things that we can do to improve our sleep quality to a point that we can reap the benefits.
Yeah. I feel like we've been like dangling these tips in front of them for like the last 10 minutes. We're like, we're going to get to the tips.
Let's get to it
now.
Let's get to it. Number 1.
Let's increase our light exposure, daytime light exposure. So, and no, we're not talking about fluorescent lights. So let's talk about the circadian rhythm now. Have you all heard that word before? I'm sure you have.
No.
You've
define it.
Okay. So it's the 24-hour internal clock inside of our brain that regulates alertness and sleepiness, basically. And it responds to the light changes in our environment. So the sunlight, if we get sunlight during the day, it's going to let our brain know, hey, it's daytime, so you need to be alert. And so it's going to release the chemicals necessary for that. And then same thing, if you spend time at night in the dark, that's going to let your brain know, hey, we're winding down. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to release the chemicals that needed to slow down at night.
So question with this. I have a friend. No, it's not me. This is not a roundabout way of saying, hey, help me with my problem.
Right.
No, I genuinely have a friend who it's almost like their sleep schedule is reversed.
Yeah.
Right? Like they sleep during the day and they're up during the night.
Yeah.
And there are periods of time where that's what they need to function at, but they have trouble with flipping towards what we would call a normal sleep schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would the circadian rhythm, the daylight exposure versus nighttime exposure of light, how might that be something that would benefit them or help them to flip that almost?
So this is a great question for anybody who works nights. Like my wife, she's a night nurse. She works at nights, and so she sleeps during the day when she can, and then works at night. And so the best way to try to hack your circadian rhythm and not get it way off schedule is making sure that when you are sleeping during the day that it is pitch black in your room. Do not let sunlight in your room at all, because that will jack with your brain. And then same thing at night. If you have opportunities to get, or before you work that night, or get as much sunlight as possible. And then also there are hacks like infrared lights. You can, they have, I'm trying to think what they're called. Red light therapy, basically. They're little red light panels that people use for, mainly they use it for like helping skin conditions, and stuff like that. But you can use those as a way to, if you're at work at night, you can have that, and it can kind of give your body the sense of sunlight. Basically,
it simulates in this sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so we want to increase our sunlight. Get outside. Go on a walk during the middle of the day, especially if you walk. If you work indoors.
Yeah, especially those who work indoors and don't get much of that light. Mm-hmm. It can make a world of a difference if they simply just introduce that.
Yeah, and literally a 20-30 minute walk. If you work out indoors, go on a 20-30 minute walk on your lunch break or something like that. That's going to make a big difference.
It's interesting that we would say, go outside and do something active to make sure that you get better sleep. Because it doesn't. I know that does make sense on some level, but at the other end of that spectrum, it's like, okay, now I have to do this to get that. You have to keep doing things, and it really does matter how you compile all those rocks together, like we're talking about, in a day, and then you have to start it all over again the next day. Because sleep resets that.
It does.
And so whenever you actually get a good night of sleep, you have to start with square one again.
Yeah, you can't store sleep. You can't okay, I'm going to sleep for 24 hours. That way I don't have to sleep the next 24 hours. I missed
sleep for a few days. I slept less than normal, so I'm going to sleep in.
I wish you could. I wish there was a sleep bank.
That's a good thought. Let's do
that. Have
you
all ever heard of blue light?
I have. I have heard of blue light. the gamer
The
thing.
gamer, yeah.
I'm familiar with this, the blue light, especially in context of coming from screens.
Yes.
In competitive play and stuff, it's actually a big thing of people taking care of their eyes now. There's blue light glasses that they can get, that even if they don't wear glasses, or it's like a special type of lens that helps to filter out some of the blue light that would come from screens and protect their eyes better.
Interesting.
So this is very important if you're someone who is on your phone a lot right before bed, or if you're on your computer working at night before bed. You really need to get either some blue light blocking glasses, or even there's apps that you can download that will filter the blue light from your screen. So that's going to be another one of those ways that it's going to, if you have all of this blue light coming in, it's going to mess up your circadian rhythm.
I know with iPhone specifically, and I don't really know the ratio of blue light or whatever, but I know that there is certain modes that you can set to trigger at individual like times. And and when those trigger and turn on, like I have a nighttime setting, right?
Yep, I have the same thing.
And I have mine set that between 6:30 and 7 p.m. it'll turn on, and it will affect the light that is coming from my phone. Even it'll make things, I think it calls it warmer versus cooler, and maybe that's a way of more or less blue.
I'm intrigued because I didn't even know that existed.
Oh, really?
And so it'll shift the color in a sense, and I can tell you that as someone who does use their phone late at night when they probably shouldn't, just because they can't sleep, which doesn't help, that there is a difference between that being on versus being off, and you can almost feel a strain on your eyes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's so much research, and it's proven time and time again that these blue light emissions coming from electronics will damage our eyes, fatigue our eyes, and also, like I said, jack up your circadian rhythm. So,
all right. So the number 2 is pay attention to what you are eating and drinking in the later hours of the day.
That's right.
This is tough for me. I'll be honest.
It is.
Does this mean we don't get to snack anymore?
So I know for me, if I eat especially a big dinner late at night, like past 7:30 or 8 o'clock, it's going to affect my sleep. So pay attention to, especially if you eat a large amount of food. Like I eat big meals because I'm trying to get all my protein in, blah blah blah. And I also like big portions, obviously.
Today's meal is especially delicious.
Make sure you're gonna get that early. So if you're gonna eat a big dinner, get that in 5:30, 6 o'clock. If you can't get that in before then, you might think about not eating as much that night because it's going to affect it.
And this is where I find myself struggling with it, is because, like Adam said earlier, I like food. Food doesn't like me though, or maybe it does because it likes to hang around. I don't know. I'll try and figure that out later. Anyway, but I do like to eat. But for me specifically, if I'm honest, the one time a day that I can't stand to eat is breakfast.
Oh, really?
And so typically, if I'm in, a mode of I'm just not paying attention, not forcing myself, and keeping track of things, I will skip breakfast like today, and I'll end up eating lunch, and I'll end up eating dinner, and naturally those two meals will end up being, like Joe said, a little bit bigger because I want to get my protein in, I want to get these things in, and so, but because of that, it almost feels like my eating schedule has been pushed back. Yeah. And so I end up eating later. Gotcha. And it causes problems. Yeah. Versus when I force myself to eat breakfast, everything gets pushed closer because I get hungrier sooner. So
is there a threshold where we should actually not eat, or is it, I guess it just depends on our rhythm, right?
Yeah, well, I would try not to eat within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime.
Okay.
And then also, if you want to help with that, if for some reason you can't avoid it and you have to eat a late dinner, go for a 20-30 minute walk afterwards, and that's going to help speed up the digestion of the food.
Okay.
So that's a big help there.
Pro tip. Thank you.
If you think about, here's a cool little parallel here. So there's tons and tons of studies of astronauts having trouble with digestion because of the lack of gravity. And so think about the same way. You're going to eat and your stomach's going to be full of food, and then you go lay down horizontally all night long. and so you're going to have more trouble with digestion there. So that's one of the big reasons it affects your sleep, because of the digestion issues being horizontal. So,
and even if we were to, eat early enough, right? Sometimes it's not necessarily the time, but the what I am eating that affects things. What are some things that we could potentially avoid or try and I know I'm going to eat this for dinner. Yeah. I should probably try and plan around eating dinner a little earlier.
Yeah. So anything that's your body, if something gives you a more acid reflux or indigestion more than other kinds of foods, obviously that's something we want to avoid. I try to never eat pizza for dinner because it will always mess with my indigestion.
Except for Fridays.
And it's worth it because I can sleep in a little bit on Saturday.
Because that makes up for it.
That makes it all better, right?
Dude, I haven't had real pizza in a really long time. I've fallen in love with crustless pizza and cauliflower pizza, and I love it, man. There's our pizza.
So and I think with the acid reflux comment, typically most people might find themselves having that issue in relation to spicy foods or things that have in I guess, a lack of better words, a little more kick to it. Yeah. Because they can kind of tear you up a little bit longer. I don't know. But yeah, I can see how that would definitely be something that if you were to eat that and then go lay down to go to bed, you're probably not gonna have a good time.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have here is on our list here is alcohol. And I know it's a big deal for a lot of people. Yeah. I choose not to drink. It's just my personal preference. Yeah. But the reason that probably makes the list is because your body breaks that down into sugar, right? And then you have to digest it all. Yep. And if you do that late at night or just before bed, even out with your meal, I would suspect it may have an effect on your sleep. So if you're having trouble with that, you might think about cutting out alcohol and see if it helps you sleep. Yeah. Usually the opposite of that is what people think. If I have that, it will calm me down.
Yeah, it might calm your nerves, but it's not going to help you get into those.
It's not going to help you sleep. Yeah. There you go. So number 3.
Before we get to number 3, just obviously, I forgot to mention to avoid caffeine late in the afternoon. I feel like that's probably a given, but
cut off the coffee.
Cut off the caffeine around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so that because it'll stay in your system for 6 hours or so. So, number 3 is create the perfect sleeping environment. So this might be different for everybody, but generally science is going to say that it needs to be in a cool room. Some people like to be warm, but they like to be warm by covers, not by heater. Do what?
This is why I'm looking at your list of the perfect environment, and I, like you said, cool. And I'm trying to think through how I prep. Right, I'm trying to process this in context of how can I get better sleep, and for me, I have to have a cool room. Things have to be almost cold to me. I can't function without it. If the worst experience for me is to lay down in bed and it to be warm.
Oh, for sure, that's the worst.
I can't stand it. But there's 2 other things that you mentioned in this list right here on our sheets. Calming, which I can understand that, you want to be relaxed, because your state of mind going into sleep needs to be one of calm. Otherwise you're going to, like me, most nights lay in bed and your thoughts are going to bounce around in your head and you're going to stare at the ceiling for 4 hours. Right. But the last one's the one that interests me the most. Manage the noise levels. Tell me more about that.
So it's probably not as mind-blowing as what you're thinking, but for some people, in order to avoid getting out of those stages of sleep, the interruptions, make it to where maybe you can't hear the dog that's barking outside, and so that would we sleep with a white noise maker that helps block those kinds of noises out.
Any box fan users?
Oh yeah, we have a box fan and a white noise maker.
I have a box fan, and it is used nightly.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking about times where I go to camp, I take a box fan with me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
your own pillow.
Yeah, right. And my own pillow. But even if I go on a trip or something and I don't take my box fan because it's not like it's attached to me at the hip. I don't take this thing everywhere. I'm not weird, okay?
You're not a middle-aged mom?
I am strange, but I am not weird, okay?
Just cat ladies and box fan people. I don't know.
I don't know. Is that the like male equivalent?
I guess.
The box fan guys. But if I go like on an extended trip or something where I'm staying at like a hotel or I'm staying at like an Airbnb or something, and there isn't something that I have that can provide almost, like you said, like that white noise to me, that's almost what a box fan does for me is the noise. I love that it helps with the temperature too. That's besides the point. But I find myself, if there's ever a moment where I don't have that noise, it affects my sleep.
Absolutely.
Because you use the illustration of the dog barking, right? Of that being able to wake me up. But I don't know, maybe you guys as fellow Texans are the same way. I can sleep through a thunderstorm and never know that it's came.
Right.
But if I lose electricity for half a second and that fan turns off,
everything's quiet.
I'm up.
No, I know. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I have to have that noise, and so that that's why I found the manage the noise levels thing.
Yeah, and Dustin, one day I hope you'll experience this. But once you have children, all of that stuff changes, and you hear things that you never thought you'd hear, and then you go through the baby monitor phase, and you're like, oh my goodness. Is everything okay? Because it's so quiet.
My wife would keep the baby monitor screen like 2 inches from her face all night long.
Yeah.
And just staring at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
but that's just part of it.
It's just part of it, yeah. But that gets into your
like you said, I don't have to worry about that.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll behave. Not yet. So that gets into our routines, though. Every one of us have a different routine. Every one of us has what we enjoy making our routine as we get closer to bed, and so continue to do that. Right, create that. And if you don't have a routine, make one. Maybe you have one, and you don't even know that you have one, but. I do this every night. I have to do this. I have to,
It's a rhythm. It's a circadian rhythm. And so it wants habit. It wants when things that you can do repeatedly that is telling your mind and your body, I'm getting ready for sleep. And so turn off the lights an hour before you go to bed. Sit in the dark. Sit by candlelight. Even if you're watching TV, turn off the lights, put it on candlelight. Something soft and light. Oh, here's a really cool study I read. Did you know that the lights above our head are less calming than the lights that we might have on a lamp, or if we have a lamp on the bedside, or if we have a lamp at below eye level? And I read that the scientist that did this study said because if we think of our early ancestors, during the day, they had their light was the sun. It was above their head. And during nighttime, when it was time for them to relax and calm down, they were sitting by fire. And so the light was below them and below the eye level. And that was the way our bodies had evolved to, our circadian rhythm have evolved around.
That really is interesting to me.
I know.
The concept of, it makes sense that like lights above our heads, I can think of my own like home. Right, and if there is a light that is above my head that's on, I'm pretty alert and awake. But every once in a while, I'm watching TV or something, and I'll turn the light off, and maybe I'll turn on a lamp or something that maybe it's not below eye level, maybe it's at eye level, But there's like a shift in the mood of the room, even between the two. One of them, I just feel more kind of relaxed in versus the other, and so that's interesting. That makes sense, though.
And even light bulbs matter, when they have soft, warm, whatever light,
the bright white or the
and so that matters. And so maybe just a simple change for something like that can hack your sleep pattern. You said something about our circadian rhythms want structure, basically, and they want what did you say? Rhythm. And it leads me to the thought of Sabbath in Scripture.
Okay.
Because you think about Sabbath, and it was the seventh day.
Mm-hmm.
After God created everything in 6 days, on the seventh day He did what?
Rested.
He rested. All right, and that is what we know to be the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Now, people for a long time have taken that and said this has got to be the Sabbath. This has got to be set apart as the Sabbath day. There's nothing in Scripture that designates Saturday, Sunday, any day to be the Sabbath day, but it is a rhythm. There is our bodies are meant for rest.
Yeah.
And so I always love whenever I talk about Sabbath to talk about this in the Guinness Book of World Records. Randy Gardner, shout out to him. He may not even be alive after this. At the age of 17, in 1963, he set the world record for staying awake. Okay?
Sounds terrible.
It is brutal. Think about this. He was awake for 11 days and 25 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay? And the reason I bring that up is because even in the most extreme circumstances, your body is built to rest.
Yeah.
You cannot push it past a certain point. I mean, you can push and push and push, and in extreme situations, you can make it go.
Yeah.
But eventually, that idea of Sabbath and rhythm is going to catch you, because God has built our bodies for that rhythm, and part of that rhythm is rest. And so,
and that's one thing. Like, you've both used this word now, in terms of health and spiritual side of the word rhythm. And to me, when I think the word rhythm, maybe I tie it to music, right? To me, a rhythm has to be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a rhythm requiring consistency. And so in regards to our sleep patterns, perhaps we need to have a consistent, and I've read this numerous times, if you need to have a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake up time, and that schedule and structure is something that your body needs. And then on the spiritual side of us having that time of rest, of us having that Sabbath, we have to make it a point to give ourselves that time and make it consistent. I went through a period of time where I didn't take that time to rest. I would work 7 out of 7 days a week doing whatever I needed to do all day, every day, and I just pushed myself to the limit. And shout out to Brother Jack, who is one of our listeners, and my pastor, who came in and said, "Hey, you need to take time to rest.
Yeah.
And you have days off for a reason. Take them." And it became apparent that I needed that time, even though I didn't realize I did. But there has to be that consistent in us taking that time to rest, to fall into that rhythm of that Sabbath.
Yeah.
For the really the betterment of ourselves.
Sure.
And those around us.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
And I want to give you a passage of scripture to go with what we're talking about. It's Romans 14:5. It says, "One person esteems one day as better than another, while another esteems all days alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind." And as we're talking about each person having their rhythm to sleep and having their routine for sleep, each one of us has to have in our own mind what God has allowed for us as Sabbath to be taken, and we can do that individually. Yeah. So if I do that on a Friday and just take, and I'm not talking even about a full day, because most people in their schedules and most people in their just everyday lives, you cannot designate just a whole day to go, I'm on Sabbath. I can't do anything. I can't make dinner. I can't, be with the kids. I can't be a spouse. I can't do, there's nothing biblical about that.
No.
But what I would say is, as an individual, find at least a piece of a week or a piece of time that you can cut out and go, I am going to designate this as rest.
Yeah.
And maybe it's rest from screen time. It's rest from, work. It's rest from stress of something else that it's hijacking your sleep. And then see how that helps you spiritually. See how that helps you physically with your sleep.
Yeah.
So
tell me if this is wrong, but I think God did not need to rest. He's infinite. He is all powerful. He did not need to rest, but I feel like he did that to set an example for us and how we should live.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was not necessary.
Yeah.
Because if you say that God is tired, then you've put something finite on him. And
something finite on an infinite God.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, no, it was
that.
not necessary. But just like everything else that he did for us, so many things he did for us in Scripture and in Jesus' life was just for our example, just for our benefit to go, yeah, I want you to follow this and I want you to mimic this. I do think that rest was part of that. So
yeah,
it's a good point.
So. Okay, cool. Hey, listen, if you listen to our podcast and you enjoy us, please help us grow this podcast by sharing. You can copy the link of each episode and send it to somebody who you think may need it. Listen to the Holy Spirit. He may be telling you this person needs to listen to this episode. Maybe the one where we talk about the Holy Spirit. I don't know. But just help us grow this. Keep joining our Facebook community. We love the interaction going on there. It's growing continually. And also, if I've had a lot of people ask me, how can I'm interested in supporting you financially. If you are interested in that, email us at progressiveoverloadpod@gmail.com, and we would be interested in talking to you about that. Do you guys have anything else to add?
Get some sleep.
Yes, go get some sleep. Go get some rest.
Enjoy your rest. We'll see you at the table next week. Thanks for listening to the Progressive Overload Podcast. We're honored to be a small part of your day. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or are interested in sponsoring our efforts, please feel free to reach out via email. Find us at progressiveoverloadpod@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our podcast so you'll be notified when our next episode drops.
And as always, you can help us reach the masses by sharing our podcast with your friends and family. And then check us out on Facebook and Instagram to follow our own personal journeys and get an inside look on our day-to-day lives. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.